Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Jennifer Rocha. I'm the department chair for the Adults with Disabilities Strides program at Castro Valley Adult and Career Education. And so as we begin our presentation tonight, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about Strides and what our program offers. We are a day program for adults with intellectual disabilities over 22 years of age. And we strongly embrace the concept that all adults have a right to an age-appropriate education, independence, community inclusion, respect, and personal choice. And our classes that we offer focus on functional academics, community independence, independent living skills, communication, and work readiness skills. And we're really excited to be expanding our employment opportunities for our individuals. Competitive integrated employment is something that we strongly believe in and really want to emphasize for all of our students in our program. Competitive means having a job earning at least minimum wage. Integrated is having people with and without disabilities working together. And basically that all employees should have the same pay, benefits, and opportunities for promotion as individuals without disabilities. And here we have some of our students who are currently working within our Castro Valley community. At Strides, for those interested in employment and pursuing employment goals, we have multiple levels of support. So we have pre-employment classes that help prepare students with work readiness skills and career exploration. We have our paid internship program that supports students with developing employment skills. We offer on-site job coaching. And we also have continued support for students who are maintaining a job in the community. So our paid internship program, we're really excited that it's going to be beginning for the 22-23 school year this August. And it will be a 9-month program. To be eligible, they must be a regional center consumer over the age of 22 or 18 with a high school diploma or equivalent, and also eligible to receive DOR services. So in our internship program, interns will be working and earning hourly pay as they work through 2 to 3 job placements. We'll also be offering classroom instruction for job readiness and soft skills training, as well as on-the-job job coaching. And our program is really emphasizing that individuals are going to gain transferable skills that they will be able to use across both general and specific across their workplace. So a typical intern might arrive in the morning and have their workplace skills class on our campus, and then they would transition to their job site. They would work at their site for the day, have a lunch break, and then come back to school at the end of the day for a debrief. And the debrief would be with our instructor or with our job coaches to kind of just go over how the day went and address any issues as they arise. So if you're interested in learning more about our adult day program, Strides program, or about our paid internship program, you can feel free to reach out to me or our transition specialist, Shannon Thomas, and our contact information is listed here. And we'll also be sharing with you a copy of these slides as well as a video recording for your reference. So at Strides, we always believe in moving forward and offering experiences for individuals to live fulfilled lives. So I would love to turn it over now to our presenters for the evening, Donna and Sheridan.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was terrific and great to be here with you all. Donna and I are thrilled to spend the next hour and a half with you. And we're going to share a deck. And as Jennifer mentioned, you'll get access to both the recording as well as the deck. So no need to scribble a bunch of notes during our time together today. Great. So Donna, would you like to kick us off here?
Sure. Thanks, Sheridan. Thanks, Jennifer. And welcome to tonight's presentation. I know you're all very busy and the days are busy, so hopefully we won't put you to sleep, or I won't put you to sleep. I know Sheridan won't. What we're going to be talking about is both exciting and also a little complex and overwhelming. I know there are a lot of fears about benefits and how work impacts benefits. It's a complex system. And tonight we're just going to give you kind of a little peek and hopefully give you enough information so that you feel confident in your ability to ask questions, to find out more, and most importantly, to understand and to believe that employment is so much more than a paycheck.
Yeah, so much more. And so just to map out how we're going to take you through this time that we have with you. So first, Donna and I will share a little bit about us and our roles at our agencies at the State Council on Developmental Disabilities and at Hire Able. Then we'll talk about some of the lingo, some important words and acronyms that we want to make sure that you're familiar with to at least get you started on this journey. We'll talk a little bit more about the value of employment. So super critical. If you leave this evening with one thing, hopefully it's all of the reasons why employment is worth it for everybody, no matter who you are. We'll cover some common disability benefits. So we'll overview some of the more common disability benefits programming, and then how to manage those programs or those benefits while working. We'll cover a bunch of resources and tools that you can use either on your own or with professionals to get help for your next steps. And hopefully we have time to share some success stories, both yours as well as some folks here in our community that we want to share some of their successes with. So that's our plan for today. So first, let's talk a little bit more about Hire Able and about the State Council and how why we're here, why we're so passionate about employment, but also how you might utilize us after this evening.
Yeah, so Hire Able, we're not a direct service provider in the traditional sense. We're more of a collaborative, more of a membership agency, and we work with the adult employment providers, the K through 12 transition programs, the adult ed programs like Strides, Department of Rehab, Regional Center, employers, with the simple goal that we want to increase employment opportunities for folks with disabilities in Alameda and Contra Costa County. So we are a team of one. Myself, I'm the consultant to Hire Able, and we have a strong board of directors. I joke that our board, which is 7 people, and between the 7 board members and myself, we have hundreds of years of experience. We are not just because we're older, but because we are committed to what we're doing. Many of us have been doing it for 30, 40 years. So we have great passion for this work. And the one area that we do provide direct services, we recently became vendorized by the Regional Center to do this, what I'm doing tonight, to do benefits planning. And not only can I do group benefits planning, I am a resource for any of you after the session to sit down one-on-one to really talk about your specific situation, because what we're talking about tonight will be generalities, and your situation may be, every situation is very unique.
Yeah, and what an opportunity. So a great offer, certainly, Donna. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. So our vision at the State Council is that Californians with developmental disabilities are guaranteed the full same and equal opportunities for life, for employment, for liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, just like all Americans. And we do that through advocacy and through promoting and implementing policies and practices that achieve self-determination, independence, productivity, and inclusion in all aspects of community life. And fun fact, there are 56 councils, actually, one in every state in the 5 territories and in Washington, D.C. And for here in California, the State Council, our focus is, of course, Californians with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And if you look at the federal definition, we're talking about 640,000 Californians. So whereas people that are served by regional center systems, that's maybe 390,000, edging up that way. But if you look at the federal definition for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, that's an even bigger population. We're also, of course, concerned with folks not just that live in the community, but folks that are still living in developmental centers or in other types of facilities. And last year, for an example, I was looking at some numbers earlier for our first meeting this morning. And last year, we worked directly with about 2.8 million Californians for state council activities, including around employment. We figured we impacted over 8 million Californians directly with our systems change work. And if we just focus on employment, we hosted or launched about 436 employment activities and trainings and workshops and technical assistance involving, 20,000 people with disabilities, 70,000 family members, and about 61,000 professionals. So if that gives you an understanding, and we did that in about 7 different languages across the state of California. So employment is just one area that we support and that we work on, but you can tell it's a big passion for us, as it is for Donna and the fine folks at Higher Able. So here's where we want to hear from you. So we are expecting you to put in the chat now. So get your chat fingers ready here. Tell us, why employment anyway? So think about, why is employment so important to you personally? And then if you are supporting or caring for somebody with a disability, then why? Why for that person? Why for that client? Why for that student? Why for that family member that you're thinking of? What's so important about employment for you personally, or for people personally? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Donna and I would love to see your thoughts on this. And then maybe while people are typing, Donna, do you want to share, what is it for you? What's the grab for you of why employment is so important?
Yeah, I love talking about this because for me, having worked with so many great individuals over the years with disabilities, I have seen how jobs transform lives. I have seen how it makes people feel, that great sense of belonging, that feeling like they're giving back to their communities, and they're becoming taxpayers. There's nothing more rewarding than seeing someone get their first paycheck. It's just it's awesome what it can do and how it can change lives.
Yeah. Adam here in the chat is saying that for his disabled son, it gives him a sense of having to do something useful in order to gain rewards. Yeah. So it's kind of twofold, that feeling of usefulness and also the rewards that we get from that. Veronica says independence on his own, earning a living. Yeah. And think about that term, earning a living, right? It's more than just money. Money is part of it, but earning a living kind of indicates like a life, right? You're earning a full life, and a life is many things. That's how I feel about employment. Employment for me is a way that I can contribute to my community. It's a way I feel a part of the community. It's the way that I feel that I can best utilize my talents and gifts. And it's also where, Don, I remember when we were talking earlier today, you mentioned that, for so many people going through school, the highlight or the focus is what you're not doing well at, right?
Absolutely.
You talked about calculus. Oh man, I could not even begin. It's been so long since I've done calculus. I couldn't do it today. Yeah. However, some of my weaknesses matter less, as an employee, right? It's somebody who's working, whether I'm working for myself or whether I'm working for an employer, I'm able to put my best foot forward and my skills forward. And that really makes a difference. Right. In a way, compared to school, where sometimes we're a little focused more than we want to be on what our deficits or where the gaps are for us, right?
Yeah, and especially the folks we support and who have had many of them really challenging, experiences in school that have not, where they, tend to maybe not test well and they don't get the kudos, whereas in the right job match, they are a valued member of the team, and it's about their strengths. It's not about their weaknesses or their challenges. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And for other folks on, because I know we just heard from a couple of people, think about it, and we still want to see it in the chat. We're going to be keeping an eye on the chat there. We want to hear why for you. Why does employment matter for you or for the people that you're supporting? Yeah. So, if we kind of pan out a bit beyond just Donna's opinion and Sheridan's opinion, right? Which is very important, I think. But even greater than that, there's been plenty of research over the years on the value of employment for people in general, but specifically for people with disabilities, the value of employment for folks with disabilities. So one of the reasons why it's so important for us to talk about this is because for almost everybody, working or earning money, it's better than relying only on government benefits for those people that qualify for governmental benefits. And because most people at the end of the day want the same things in life, the big picture stuff, right? So pride in who we are, pride in what we do. We want to have connections with people, friends and acquaintances. We want to learn new things. We want to feel like we have a safe place, a safe place to live, safe place to spend time outside of our home. And we also want to be able to save for the future, whatever that looks like, and to make plans for our future. And to do these things, income is certainly important. It's not everything, but it's certainly a big chunk of this. And you do need resources. And most of the time, that includes earning money through employment, whether that's working for an employer, contract work, self-employment, right? There's a variety of different ways that looks. So I want to make sure that when Donna and I are talking about work or employment, don't just think in the box of like a 9-to-5 working for an employer and going somewhere and doing certain things for a certain amount of hours, right? Employment and work is very broad and can include a variety of things, including paid internships, self-employment, customized employment, contract work. There's a variety of different ways that employment looks for people. And we know, something else in addition to some of the research studies that we're going to be citing on the next couple of slides here. We want to point out that California is also involved in the National Core Indicators Project. And so most states in the US participate in National Core Indicators. And, they ask a variety of different questions in terms of satisfaction with services, disability services, satisfaction with life, general wellness and happiness in one's living situation in their community. And there's also questions about employment. And so we know that individuals who earn income are more satisfied and happier with aspects of their lives. They have more control, they have more friends or connections in the community, and overall have better health and mental health, right? And that's important, the mental health and physical health components and the correlation and connection there between work and those health and wellness benefits. And then just a couple of other items we wanted to point out here when it comes down to research. You don't need to hear it from us, but work is connected with higher quality of life. It's connected with an increase in personal independence, which is something that was mentioned in the chat here, and an increase in autonomy and self-determination. Super important things, right, for all of us, no matter who we are. And if we are someone with a disability, with multiple disabilities, with no disabilities yet, right, it really encompasses all of us. So let's shift gears a little bit. We want to prep you with some of the terms that you may be coming into contact with when you're exploring work, either for yourself, a loved one, or for somebody that you're working with, okay? And we also want to kind of expose you to some of the acronyms, right? Everybody loves all the alphabet soup that comes with, school district lingo, regional center lingo, Department of Rehab lingo, disability services, right? So we want to at least expose you to some things that you might come across on your path for work and managing benefits while working. So the first real basic here, and you heard this from Jennifer, competitive integrated employment. So that's full or part-time work where a person is paid minimum wage or greater, is hired directly from the employer in a setting that includes a variety of people, including people that don't have disabilities. So it's not segregated, it's integrated. And where workers have the same opportunities for advancement and the same chance to receive the same benefits as their coworkers that do not have disabilities and are in similar positions and have the opportunities for advancement. Just want to highlight that again because that's so critical. The other term that we want to make sure people are familiar with is when you hear employment first. So that's referring to California's employment first policy. Really exciting. And we shared with the group this morning For those of you that are here in the Bay Area, that you are local, be proud, because it's a lot of terrific advocacy and coalition building and collaboration here in the Bay Area that set the stage for employment first policies, that help set the stage. So prior to 2013, there was a lot of employment first policy work that was happening here in local regional centers, in employment collaborations with agencies and a variety of educational programs. So that helped influence when the state made the jump in 2013 to create a policy statewide. And we want to read this excerpt because it's so critical, okay? And this is the whole point. This is kind of the value proposition for why we're here and why it's exciting to be talking about these things. And it's that opportunities for integrated competitive employment shall be given the highest priority for working age individuals with developmental disabilities, regardless of the severity of their disabilities. So the key there is regardless of the severity of disabilities or the impacting levels of somebody's disability, doesn't matter. That opportunities for competitive integrated employment should be given the highest priority. And so that's so much of why we're all here, whether we are people with disabilities, whether we are family advocates or professionals that work with people. This is why, because we believe in employment first. We know that everybody deserves a chance at employment, and with the right supports, anybody can find their fit and their success in the workplace. And that looks a variety of ways for different folks. So this may look like a lot of acronyms, a lot of alphabet soup here. We don't want to overwhelm you. With your benefits planning, you may not need to know all this, okay? But we want you to be exposed to it. We want you to know during your work to manage your benefits while working, you may come in contact with some of these things, okay? So everything from Social Security income, otherwise known as SSI, you're going to hear that a lot from Donna and I this evening. Social Security disability income, or SSDI, you'll hear about that a lot. We'll go into those two programs. Those are some of the biggest ones there. Social Security disabled adult child, otherwise known as SDAC, which is not the same as self-determination. Somebody asked me a while back. We were using acronyms. Blind work expenses. So that's referring to certain types of expenses that can be excluded or subtracted from how your benefits would adjust with your income. Donna's going to talk about that. It's a good thing, by the way, those expense exclusions. Impairment related work expenses. Again, that's classification of certain types of expenses that won't count against your benefits when you're doing some calculations. So Donna will show some examples of that. But just for your own knowledge, so some examples of impairment related work expenses, or IRWEs, could be transportation of mileage, medical equipment, work-related equipment, residential modifications in some cases, certain types of routine medical services. So, we're not going to get into the weeds tonight, but we want you to know it exists. Certain things like trial work periods. So certain disability benefits programs, when it comes to work, there's a certain trial period where your earnings may not impact your benefits. That's specifically with certain types of SSDI benefits. Okay, so again, we're not going to go into all the minute details, but we're going to give you big picture that some of these things exist in these various programs that you may qualify for. Pretty exciting. Something you hear quite a bit is the PASS program, which stands for Plan to Achieve Self-Support. That lets you set aside some money that would otherwise be deducted from your SSI payments. And in some cases, SSDI recipients can also utilize this. It's considered a work incentive that's fairly popular. And then there's things like special conditions and subsidies. And that would be for like if you receive on-the-job support or have a position that's customized to you. And then SGA, you see that quite a bit. That's Social Security Administration speak for substantial gainful activity. And that basically is kind of is the law defining disability and a certain way that some disabilities might impact your ability to earn money and to have substantial gainful activity, certain amount of work hours, certain amount of earnings based on certain types of disabilities that a person may have. So again, there's lots of really rich, detailed definitions. This and tons more terms defined. And by the way, one of the best glossaries. There's several glossaries out there to help you. One of my favorites, had to shout out, California's Disability Benefits 101, otherwise known as DB 101. We'll refer to that resource a few times this evening. You may also want, this isn't on the screen here, but you may read about 1619A and 1619B. Basically, think of it this way. Those are sets of rules. Those are sets of Social Security Administration rules that basically say, okay, here's how it's going to work with SSI or with SSDI when somebody's working. Okay, so just think of them as buckets of rules. That's kind of a nice, easy way to think about it for the purpose of our work tonight. And then we wanted to, before we go into more details, to give you some overview of some of the actual benefits programs, we wanted to address a couple of common questions and fears that people often have, okay? And this is specifically, these are some excerpts from actual interviews with administrators at Social Security Administration. Some of my colleagues had some events directly with administrators at Social Security and had some kind of frequently asked questions going on. So these are some excerpts from that. So one popular one is, why does Social Security Administration provide work incentives anyway for people with disabilities? The quick answer would be, the summarized answer would be, is that everyone who wants to work should be able to try. And so the Social Security Administration has work incentive benefits programs that make it possible to work and still retain benefits or your health insurance. Pretty simple, right? Because everybody, including the government, would like you to work if you can work, right? And still have safety net of benefits and health insurance if you're not able to work at a degree to have your own health insurance or to have health insurance that you can afford. Another question that's pretty common, are the work incentive provisions the same when you're looking at the two of the more common programs, SSI and SSDI? The answer is no. We wish it was that simple, right? And Don is going to go into some examples here. But the quick answer is to say no, these are different programs for different people, even though sometimes you might be a person that actually qualifies for multiple programs and maybe you have both, right? We'll talk about the scenario. Sometimes people do have both SSI and SSDI and work, okay? A quick another resource that we want to shout out before we dive into some specifics is Social Security Administration has what they call the Red Book. They publish it every year, and it basically gives you a rundown of all of the programs and the work incentives, the details for each of these programs, and the up-to-date limits, income limits, it gives you the exact numbers for that year. Really, really helpful. So if you've never seen that, you can download it on the website. You can ask it to be mailed to you if you don't want to download something. So you have a lot of options for resources and many more coming. One last common question that oftentimes comes up that Don and I just wanted to put out there is, how is an individual's Medi-Cal or Medicare insurance affected by work? We hear a lot of people saying, hey, especially with the pandemic, it is very concerning to think about, I want to work, but if I lose my Medi-Cal or my Medicare and I can't get quality health insurance through work, or I end up not being able to work enough hours to make it happen, that's really scary. That's scary for whatever, for me in health and for me in sickness also, right? In most cases, work activity does not have to eliminate a person's eligibility for Medicare or Medi-Cal, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit more because those healthcare packages are connected to some of the disability benefits that we talked about earlier, and we'll go into more detail about, okay? So in most cases, it doesn't have to mean you don't have to choose to keep your Medi-Cal and Medicare and to work. You don't have to choose. And depending on the amount of earnings, in many cases, Medi-Cal or Medicare can continue indefinitely as long as the other conditions of eligibility are being met, okay? And that's a lot of ifs, because please don't take what we're sharing with you this evening as the advice for you directly out there. No, this is to give you enough information under your belt for you to feel like you know what to ask. You can do some looking at the resources that we're sharing with you, but please connect with a benefits planner, because then you're going to get that one-on-one support for your specific or for your family specific scenario and situation. You're going to feel so much more confident and prepared to go out and know that you're managing your benefits. All right, Over to you, Donna.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Sheridan. Before I get into the less exciting part of the presentation, kind of the more of the nitty gritty, I just wanted to pause here and see if anyone has any questions that they want to put in the chat or the Q&A. Just take a second and feel free. We'll hopefully have time at the end, but please feel free to put in questions if something I say doesn't make sense, if you want me to slow down. Sheridan will be monitoring the Q&A and chat while I'm speaking. So, you know, we've been talking a lot about the benefits of work and how it's way more than a paycheck. And we talked about how for many folks with disability, work is a time where they can really feel, you know, good about themselves. They have that sense of belonging. And, you know, I always kind of look at, you know, my own life and how when I meet someone for the first time, you know, usually within a few minutes, you know, one of the topics that comes up is, so what do you do? What's your job? What do you do for a living? It's really such a big part of who we are, our identity. And that's true for everyone. Doesn't matter if you have a disability or not. So it really is that sense of belonging that is so critical for people with IDD as well as anyone else. But we know benefits are important. We know they're a safety net. And we know that a lot of folks are eligible for the benefits and they should apply. I encourage families, regardless of, you know, what their potential of their family member may be, apply. It doesn't hurt. If at some point in your life, we hope you don't need them, that's great, but it doesn't hurt to apply. There are two big systems that we talk about. They both fall under the Social Security Administration, which is SSA. Sheridan's already talked about it. One we refer to as SSI, which is Supplemental Security Income, and the other is SSDI. For both programs, you have to have a disability that is considered significant enough that it basically impedes your ability to earn substantial gainful employment. It basically means you won't be able to support yourself because of the severity of your disability. For both programs, you have to meet that criteria. The difference for SSI is also means tested. It's basically a poverty level. It's for people who don't have, who don't earn or have other sources of income, or they might have some sources of income, but it's small, and they don't have resources. You'll often hear this. You can't have resources more than $2,000 when you apply if you want to be considered eligible. Because it's considered one of the poverty programs, the government basically doesn't want people to have elaborate lifestyles, right? So they don't give you a lot of money. They give you enough. And as we know in the Bay Area, it's not enough to pay for food, clothing, and shelter. So for people to have more independence and to be able to buy the things that give them greater joy, like the things you and I might want to do, working can help you do that. And we'll be showing you in a couple of examples that almost always, and once again, like Sheridan said, this may not apply to you, but almost always you're going to be better off financially by working, even if you're on benefits. And I'll talk to you how that will work. As we said, at any time, if you need more one-on-one support, we'll talk about the resources that can help you get that support. And I'm also going to be talking later on by one of my favorite programs, which is CalAble. The ABLE Act passed a number of years ago. It stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. And it is one great, after lots and lots of advocacy in the country, it's a great program for people with disabilities that really can help them get out of poverty. So I'll talk more about that later on. Next slide. So as I mentioned, SSI is a income-based and eligibility-based program. You know, people often have questions about, does that mean I can't work? How many hours can I work? We'll go into more specifics, but the very broad way I look at SSI, in terms of earnings is roughly for every $2 you make, you're going to lose $1 of your benefits. It's more complicated like that than that. And there are all these great work incentives that can help reduce that. So you have more of your benefit, but it's roughly as your earnings go up, your SSI goes down. Another big difference between the SSI program and the SSDI program allows you to keep all of your benefit if you make below a certain amount. And then it gets complicated, but at some point you lose all of your benefit. It's an all or nothing program. You either get all of your benefit or you get none of it. With SSI, it's a gradual decline as your wages go up, but you still end up with more. And I'm not going to go into it's too much into the weeds to really talk about what the PASS program is or the earweeds. But when you meet with a benefits planner or someone who is knowledgeable, if they can help you explore ways that you can maximize your benefits with these work incentives. So believe it or not, as Sheridan said, the Social Security Administration really wants people with disabilities to work, and they have created programs to help people work. Another program is called the Ticket to Work. The Ticket to Work program is something that people usually use when they're working with the Department of Rehabilitation. And one thing it does is once you are found eligible for Social Security or SSI, you will get evaluated every few years, regardless of the severity of your disability. If your disability isn't that severe, it may be more frequent, but everyone gets their cases reviewed. If you're doing some, let's say, internship or a job, or you're taking classes that may lead to a job, and you're doing it under a Ticket to Work, those reviews are suspended. So that's another great benefit. Next slide. Once again, we're talking about SSI. It is a federal program that is a cash benefit to people who have disabilities and low income. If you're under 18, you can qualify for SSI if you have a disability. But if you're under 18, they will look at the family's income. So it's not just based on the person with the disability or the child with a disability. They'll look at the family's income. If the family's income is low enough, then the child under 18, you can get SSI. More typical for the people that we work with, they're eligible when they turn 18 because they will look only at the adult with disabilities. They're considered adult at that point, even if they're living at home. Even if they have a rep payee or they can serve, they won't look at the family's income or resources. They only look at the individual's income and resources. In California, once you are found eligible for SSI, you are automatically entitled to Medi-Cal. There's a few states in the country that's not true, but it is true in California. However, even if you qualify, sometimes you still have to fill out an application. Sometimes Medi-Cal are run by the county offices of health. So you still have to probably go through an application, but you would be found eligible. Next slide. And once again, because this stuff gets a little confusing, please feel free to ask questions in the chat or Q&A. I'm happy to always stop and answer a question. So SSDI, SSDI is actually what we all pay into. This isn't really the government's money. When someone qualifies for SSDI, it's because they have either worked, and if you look at your pay stubs, you will see that there's money coming out of your pay stub that's going into your Social Security account. That's where this money comes from. So many individuals, when they're young, let's say 18, 20, 25, they probably haven't worked for very long. If they are found eligible for SSDI, it's one of the other terms. It's because they're really found eligible because their parent has retired, has become disabled themselves, or have passed away. Because in order to be eligible on your own benefits, you have to put in at least 10 quarters of work making over a certain amount of money. So, an 18-year-old couldn't possibly have done that. Many of the people I've worked with over the years who become eligible for SSDI, it's on their parents' work record, not their own work record, until maybe they're 30, 40 if they've been working for like 10, 20 years. Okay, so once again, you don't have to, it's not resource-based. So you can have money in the bank. It doesn't matter how much money in the bank. You could have other sources of income. The only thing they'll look at is your earnings, and that's a really complicated system of figuring out how your SSDI benefit will be impacted. So we do recommend, if you qualify for SSDI, to meet with a benefits planner. What you do is you go through 9 months of a trial work period, and then there's 3 other months called the grace period, where it doesn't matter what you make. You can make $1,000, you can make $5,000, you can make $10,000. You would still get your benefit for that time. But as soon as that trial work period is over, if you're making over what's called SGA, which is currently $1,350, you would lose your full benefit. However, I'm going to say this again, work incentives can really make a difference. That's why it's so important to talk to someone who really understands how this all works. Next slide. Yeah, so even though we usually call most benefits that fall under, it's Title 22, it's Title 2 of Social Security.
Title 22, something else entirely.
I
right?
know it's getting. I know that one too. It's 17, and no, it's too many numbers. But sorry, Title 2 insurance, Social Security. So if you're the individual with the disability is getting it from their parents' record, it's really Social Security Disability Adult Child, or CDB, Child Disability Benefits, but most of us refer to it as SSDI. Yeah, I think we could go on to the next one. Yeah, and I think I'm just kind of skipping ahead and talking a little bit about the differences between the two programs. One is resource-based and one is not. The way earnings impact them are very different. Even the work incentives for them are different. The other thing I want to stop and say right now is one of the most important things, another really important takeaway for tonight, even if you forgot everything else, is if your family member starts working, or if you're the job seeker who starts working and you have benefits, you must report your earnings to the Social Security Administration. Yeah, that is the best way to protect yourself and to avoid problems down the line. I'm bringing this up now because, as Sheridan said earlier, sometimes people can get SSI and SSDI, even though they both fall under the Social Security Administration, and you would think that one part of the system talks to the other part of the system, they don't always. So if you do have a job and you happen to get both SSI and SSDI, please just make sure that when you report your wages that they know that you're getting both, so that it will be those wages, the information will go to both parts of the system. And I think we can go to the next one. Sheridan talked a little bit about medical insurance. I know this is always a big fear for individuals and family members. And I just want to say that thankfully with the Affordable Care Act, it's not as much of a worry as it used to be. As I mentioned, people who qualify for SSI also get Medi-Cal benefits automatically. If you become eligible for SSDI or CDB, you have to wait 24 months to get Medicare. You might have heard the term Medi-Medi. Just like there are some people who get both SSI and SSDI, there are people who have both Medi-Cal and Medicare, which is really great. That's probably the best in terms of health insurance to have both. And that's very possible to have. And there's lots of really great incentives for people to keep their medical coverage, even if they don't have $1 of benefits, even if they aren't getting $1 of SSI. You can, there are other programs, and we'll talk a little bit about them, where you can stay on Medi-Cal, or you're in a different Medi-Cal program and you might have a small out-of-pocket copay, but it's usually very small and it's definitely worth it. One of them is called the Aged and Disabled Federal Poverty Medi-Cal. It's also known as the 250 plan and the California Working Disabled Medi-Cal. So those are all things you can find out more about, and not to worry about losing your benefits, because I know that's a big fear a lot of families have. Next. Okay, this is one of my favorites. I just love, I love the ABLE Act. I see
it still feels so exciting, doesn't it? Like
it does, because I was so frustrated for so many years about what I'll talk about how silly sometimes the system is. So in 2014, Congress passed the ABLE Act. In 2018, it became a program here in the state known as CalAble. Anyone who had a disability that started before the age of 26, so that would be anyone who qualifies for regional center services because their disability has to be before 22, is eligible for a CalAble account. It is a great program because, as we've talked about, the SSI program and the Medi-Cal program, I should say, the Medi-Cal and the SSI program both are resource tested, which means that previously you could not have more than $2,000 in your bank account. You couldn't save. So how can anyone ever get out of poverty, right? And some people would have special needs trusts, but special needs trusts are expensive to set up. They're complicated. And usually the beneficiary, the person with the disability, doesn't have access to it. So the ABLE Act allows people to save up to $100,000. It's up to this year, you could save up to $16,000 a year. And you can use your the funds in the ABLE Act to pay for any qualified disability expense. And that is a very broad definition. I keep joking about it, but basically, as long as you don't use the money to do anything illegal or to gamble, you can probably get away with it. I would advise that you keep records of your expenses, but it could pay for rent, it could pay for food, it could pay for a vacation, except won't pay for losses at the gambling if you go into Vegas. It could pay for a gym membership. It could pay for, music lessons. It's a very broad definition of what it can pay for. It could pay for medical expenses if you have to pay for your copays. The thing I love about it, and the reason it makes me so happy, is for many years I worked with people who were living in their own apartments or trying to live in their own apartments. And as you know, the cost of rent is really expensive in the Bay Area. And when people just have their SSI checks, and if they didn't have a job, it would be almost impossible for them to pay their rent, pay for their groceries, pay for utilities, and have anything left over. So we would often have families who try to help out their family member and, pay some money towards rent or towards groceries. And if you remember, one of my earlier slides is your SSI check is supposed to pay for your food and your shelter. Well, unfortunately, SSI, your check isn't enough money and you need help from your family to pay for your bills. But under the Social Security Administration back then, or even now, if your family member gives you money, it looks like they're subsidizing your income. So therefore, they would lower your SSI amount. And it just would drive me nuts. This does not make any sense. People need more money to live independently. If they're fortunate enough to have a family member to help them, to penalize them by lowering their SSI check just was crazy making. So with ABLE accounts, a family member can deposit that extra money into their ABLE account. The person with a disability can write a check or withdraw that money to pay for their groceries or help pay for the rent, and it does not impact the amount of money they're getting for their for SSI. So I love ABLE and Cal ABLE. So next slide. Okay, now we get to do some math. I said math doesn't matter, but then I realized it does matter in some jobs, but not calculus, unless you're a physics professor or an astronaut. For most of us, simple math is all we need. Before I get into this example, I just want to stop and see if anyone has any questions. I know it's getting late in the day, so hopefully people are still with us. Okay, so this will show a little bit more detail about how earnings impact your SSI check. So if you get SSI, they looked at two things. They look at your unearned income and your earned income. Basically, earned income means anything you work for. You work to get that money. Or unearned income is some money you might be getting that isn't as a result of work. So let's say you do get SSDI, that would be considered unearned income. So the way you calculate on this is actually from a spreadsheet, and you could get copies of the spreadsheet. It's one spreadsheet, but it's over 3 slides. You would put your unearned income at the top of the spreadsheet because it's calculated 100% of your unearned income is subtracted from your impacts your SSI check. It will be clearer on the next slide. So in the example I'm using, the person doesn't have any unearned income. That would have been in step 1. Instead, we're going to go to step 2, and let's pretend this person has a job. They have a part-time job, and they make $485 a month at this job. So SSI gives you 2 allowances. It gives you the GIE, which is the general income exclusion, which you could use above if you do have some unearned income. And they give you $65 exclusion for earned income. If you only have earnings from your job, you can subtract both of them in step 2. So in my example, it's you made $485, you could subtract $20, brings you down to $465. You could subtract the other $65 for the earned income exclusion. So now we're down to $400. In my example, for simplicity's sake, if I didn't come up with any benefits, like an Earway or a PASS, the PASS plan. But you could see how important it would be if you had it. So let's say you were paying out of pocket $50 a month for a prescription that you needed to work, and your medical benefits didn't cover it. You needed that medication to work. It was related to your disability, and you were paying out of pocket. If so, it would qualify for an impairment-related work expense, and you could take that amount and put it on that line. But once again, I'm trying to keep the math simple here, so you don't have any. So we're going with the $400. We bring it down, we divide it by 2, because once again, it's kind of that 2-for-1 deal I was talking about. So now we're left with $200, which is considered your total countable earned income. And then if we could go to the next slide. So now what you do is you take your SSI rate. If you're living independently in your own apartment or home, you're eligible for $1,040. You subtract the total income, countable income, which is $200, and what your new SSI amount will be is $840. So you might say, oh, but we did lose money. I don't get as much. I did get a decrease. Yes, you did get a decrease, but now we're going to take that $840, we're going to add it with your $485 in wages, and now your total is $1,325. So you are definitely in better financial shape than you were when you weren't, than if you weren't working. So I hope that helps. All right.
Yeah, that's just a sample, right?
Yes.
So yours is going to look different. And as Donna mentioned, some people will download and use the worksheet and scribble it out. For other folks, they'll use an online worksheet, like it's with some of the resource sites that we've talked about, or they'll do a worksheet like this with their benefits counselor. So there's a few different ways to go through it. It's not like you're stuck figuring out the math on your own.
Yeah. All right, I think next. Okay. All right, we did all that. Yay, things are going great. I'm working, and I have an overpayment. I would love to be able to say the chances of this happening are very slim, but I'd be lying. In part because the Social Security Administration, and I actually have a really good friend who's has been working for Social Security for many years, and I tease her sometimes, but it's a big bureaucracy, and they're often very far behind, right? Not very far behind. They're usually a few months behind. So even if you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing and you're reporting your wages and you're reporting changes to your job, whether you got an increase or a decrease, sometimes you'll get those letters. And earlier I was sharing a story, how the first time I dealt with this, I was much younger. I was just out of grad school. I was in a job overseeing people living in their own apartments in a residential setting back in Massachusetts. So I had no employment experience at that time. And one of the people we were supporting, who he had been working for over 20 years at a hotel. He had a great work history, got a letter from Social Security saying he was overpaid by $36,000, which is a lot of money now. And it was really a lot of money then. And it was terrifying. He couldn't understand the letter. I couldn't understand the letter. But what you do in those situations is you find help, right? Luckily, even back then, there were people who can help, and we found his help. And because he didn't really do anything wrong, he was doing what he was supposed to do. That overpayment was ultimately waived, and he never had to pay back a cent. So, please don't get, you might get anxious, but please understand there are resources that can help you. And sometimes Social Security makes a mistake, and then there really is no overpayment. Sometimes they did make a mistake, but you did everything you were supposed to do, so you don't have to pay it back. And sometimes you might have to pay it back, but you never have to pay it back all at once. You could pay it back in small payments. If you're on SSI, because it's a program that's based in poverty, it's basically presumption that you can't afford to pay it back. So sometimes it will be waived and you don't have to pay it back. So yes, you might get an overpayment, but there are ways to address it, and there are people who can help you with that.
Yeah, and we have a great question, Donna, in the chat. Angie writes, what if the income you make each month is different? Does that change your SSI every month? Great question.
That is a great question. It's a really great question, because one of the things I forgot to mention, I did mention that you should be reporting sending a copy of your pay stubs every month. But what I should have said is you really should send it in by the 10th of the month following the month that you earn money. So let's see, what month are we in? We're in March. So if we're in March, every pay stub I got in March, I should submit by April 10th. And sadly, it will impact your income. Your SSI check will be different, and it will go up and it will go down based on your wages. That's why it's so important to always submit those pay stubs so that they can keep track of it, especially, because if your income goes down, I know a lot of people a lot of the people that I've been supporting over the years, sometimes they work over the holidays, they might get a little extra work, and then their SSI check goes down, but then suddenly the holidays are over and they're making less money. So we also notify people about changes in our job if it's significant, because we want to tell them, yeah, I had this job, I was working X amount of hours, but now I'm only working this many hours. So hopefully they'll expedite it, and that way your benefits check can go up. So yes, the way it works with SSI is your benefit payment may go up and down, and that's is why it's so important to report wages. It's different on SSDI, because with SSDI, you either get all of your benefits checked or none of it, depending on your situation. Great question. Thank you for that.
And important to know, I mean, people sometimes think, oh gosh, that's so stressful. I'm reporting my income every month, and if I make more money, my SSI goes down. Well, yeah, it's because you made more money, right? And then the nice thing is, let's say your hours get cut at work, your SSI goes back up. So, it's for a lot of people, once they experience a few months of it, it becomes peace of mind for them. They truly see it as this safety net that it's supposed to be once you get in the hang of it. And then, Donna and I have worked with a bunch of people, over the decades that, that's one of the things that they genuinely enjoy doing is let's submit my income for the month to, because that I keep my safety net in place, right? So I have my job and I have my benefits. And that's a good feeling. That's more than a lot of folks have, to be honest.
Yeah, and having people who understand or you trust can help you. I mean, I did have many people who worked irregular schedules over the years, and I would be able to tell them, oh, I have a feeling that your SSI check's going to go down in a few months because you're making more money now. So please try to save this money because you'll need it for rent in 2 months. So there was, after a while, you can learn to plan accordingly. So, yeah. Oh, Sarah did.
There we go. Thank you. I double clicked twice. I remuted myself. So we're going to shift gears now and talk a little bit about resources, additional resources for success in different programs and websites to take a look at. But before we do, this is a great time again for us to pause. Let us know if you have any questions. For example, we've had some great ones so far. It's a small, intimate group here. There's no dumb questions. We know this. So if there's any questions about what Donna just went through, let us know. This is a great time.
While you might be thinking of questions, I just wanted to say one thing that I actually forgot to say this morning. That's another good incentive that the Social Security has is even if you get if you are doing great on the job and everything's going well and maybe you are able to work full time but you're really afraid of what's going to happen with your benefits. Another incentive they have is called the Expedited Reinstatement. So for many individuals, even if they go off benefits, if something changes in their job, if it's with a certain amount of time, they don't have to go through the long application process again. There's something called Expedited Reinstatement. So there's lots of reasons not to be afraid about working.
Yeah. And they do that again because they want people to be able to work at their greatest capacity that is sustainable, right? So they want people who feel like, you know what, I think I can do this. I think I'm stable in my work and in my health in a way that allows me to work in the job that I have now. And I think I can go ahead and work to a degree where I don't need to be on benefits any longer. But then if something happens, bam, they try to make it smoother and easier for you to get back on. So in that sense, you really do have the system supporting you, right? The system that wants you to succeed and wants you to go ahead and stretch and grow and learn as an employee or as a worker, whether that's you're self-employed or employed by a business. So that's pretty exciting. So here we go.
Sorry, just one question that came in the Q&A. Someone arrived late and they wanted to know if they would get a copy of the slides, and the answer is yes.
Yeah, you're going to get access to the recording as well as the slides. So you're in good shape if you showed up late. You missed some of the fun we had earlier, but don't worry. You came in just in time for some of the resources here. So some of these we talked about and others we haven't yet, but this is a collection, the next few slides that Don and I really think are important for you to know, okay? So the first, you heard us sing our praises for Disability Benefits 101, otherwise known as DB 101. Really, it's a wonderful site. I would have to say that between Social Security Administration website and DB 101, those are the two websites that I go on most consistently for years now when there's certain types of questions that I need quick answers to, or I'm thinking, oh shoot, so what's the current limit for this program here? Or, hey, did that change last year? I don't remember, because none of us can remember all details for all programs and all benefits in the world. It's just not going to happen. So DB 101 is terrific because it gives you a lot of fact sheets, summaries of information, so you can quickly identify what are the components of this program, what's the eligibility for different programs, both on the health side and the cash benefit side. And then it also gives you a bunch of really cool estimators or calculators where you can plug in your estimated or your real income or your situation. And then it can give you some estimates of what to expect in terms of your benefits planning and how to retain your benefits when you're working. Super cool. Again, websites like this, as wonderful as they are, they're no replacement for benefits planners, okay? But super helpful for you to gain some confidence, to have a good sense of what's going to happen, or to help yourself along the way after you've seen a benefits planner and now you're maintaining your benefits on your own. And from time to time, you just want to double check some things, okay? Super helpful. So you can see we just included a few here, but there's many more. But for example, the benefits and work estimator, the school and work estimator, if you're someone who's working and staying in school, and the Medi-Cal for the working disabled estimator. Okay, those are just a couple examples. Really terrific. So can't say enough about DB 101. And then we touched on this briefly earlier. There's a couple of really cool paid internship types of programs in California. One is called the SIP and the State Internship Program. So that's a way for people to get paid internships in civil service if you're interested in working for the state government. Another, and the other that we're talking about here is the paid internship program. This one that we have linked to here is specifically for people that have access to regional center services. So if you or someone you're working with is working with regional center services, the paid internship program, totally terrific program. And it's a way for you to explore and to help secure a paid internship. And so it's an internship funding. Department of Developmental Services will pay. So it's paid, you're getting the wages, but the wages are not costing you. The business that's hiring you for the internship or your internship host is not having to pay those internship hours. And this last summer, there were some changes with the program that I think are good changes. And so internships now can be up to 1,040 hours per year for an individual placed in an internship, which is awesome because prior to last summer, there was an income limit. You could make X amount of dollars. Well, that sounds well and good until you look at, the wages. Minimum wage in one county looks a little different than minimum wage elsewhere. And here in the Bay Area, where we tend to see wages that are higher, same with LA compared to some other parts of the state, some people are complaining of, hey, I can't work as much as I want to at my internship because I'm bumping up against that income limit. Well, it's not a problem now. So no matter what you're making for your internship, you can have your internship up to 1,040 hours per calendar year, or per 12 months there, rather than having it have an income limit. So that's terrific. There's some other components too. So this internship hours can be for a variety of things, including some of the placement work. This is for internships that are at or at minimum wage or above minimum wage. Whatever the customary wage is for that kind of an internship, really terrific. So that second bullet point there is, again, a little bit more information. You heard a little bit from us tonight about the Ticket to Work program. So that's one of Social Security's program, and it supports career development for Social Security disability beneficiaries. And it kind of has that wide range, right? Donna said it's a little bit more flexible, some of the programs through SSDI. And so this is for ages 18 to 64 who want to work. It's a free program. And basically it allows folks to improve their earnings potential and to work towards long-term success in the workplace. And so job seekers with a disability, they can access employment providers called employment networks, ENs, and then can work with you as the job seeker. You can get some vocational rehab services, gain some work experience, and your cash benefits and your Medi-Cal or your Medicare continues through your transition. So there's some protections in place for your benefits while you're transitioning to longer term work success. So, one of many terrific programs to look into.
Sheridan, there was a question in the chat about the types of work people can do under a paid internship.
Yeah. So really, the sky's the limits. I mean, yeah, Donna, can you think of a couple examples? So I know someone who's doing like a science-based internship with a museum. We've seen internships at administrative offices.
Yeah, I know some of the counties have them.
I've had one in my office. So the State Council on Developmental Disability. We had right before COVID. I was thankful because our intern, and who's successfully working now, by the way, who's hired and has an amazing job, a government job that she's always wanted, and it's because she got that 1 year experience with us in the internship, and she scored the government job of her dreams. I love that, right? Those stories are just super exciting. So in this case, the person I'm thinking of, right? So had some challenges with work history, had a 1 year internship, got that support, got great paychecks during that time. And that helped her launch into the job of her dreams, a permanent job after the internship, which is pretty cool. But we've seen all kinds of examples. We've seen paid internship jobs in like healthcare settings, medical settings, business,
working with animals, culinary, hotels, retail, offices. Yeah, it can be any place where there's a job. It could be turned into an internship. It's a great program.
Super cool. I love it. It's one of my favorite. You know how we got kind of giggly earlier talking about CalAble? The paid internship program is another one of those where it's like, hallelujah, this is the kind of stuff, that we were looking for, for so long.
Yeah, I mean, many of the individuals we work with, we know how great they are. We know how much potential they have, but they don't necessarily interview well, right? And this is their opportunity to shine.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is nothing better. Donna mentioned this earlier. There's nothing better than getting that email or that phone call from somebody that's like, I just scored my first paycheck, my first like real work paycheck. And I'm loving it and I'm proud and here's what I'm doing. And I mean, there's nothing better than that. Yeah. So this page, great question, by the way, Frank, thank you for that. Additional resources here. So we talked about some of the ways the Department of Rehabilitation can help you. And then we've also talked about services that you can get from the regional center system if you qualify for regional center services. So those top two bullets, that's what it talks a little bit about there. For those folks that might be unfamiliar, Department of Rehabilitation, they serve a much wider range of people than the regional center system, right? So the regional center system, the eligibility is a little bit more narrow. It's focused on the Lanterman Act's eligibility and definition for intellectual and developmental disability, more restrictive than the federal definition, okay? So we're talking a smaller, more exact group of folks in California. Department of Rehab, their umbrella is bigger, is wider. So if you are supporting somebody or you are somebody that has a developmental disability or a different type of disability and doesn't qualify for regional center services, DOR may still be a great fit for you, okay? And DOR can offer evaluation, career counseling, pre-employment transition services for students, job search, job placement, assistive technology, heck, even vehicle modifications and mobility devices if you need them for work. So there's a variety of different resources. And the way that DOR works, so for those folks that are familiar with regional center services, once you're over the age of 3 and you're in the regional center under that kind of eligibility, that stays with you, right? So, maybe your services change and you have more or less services over the years, but that kind of, your case is held, right? You still have a case open with the regional center if you stay living in California and you choose to have it. With Department of Rehab, it's very different. The case management does not look the same because when you open a case with Department of Rehabilitation, the point is to create that employment plan, find out, what do you need? Do you need an assessment? Do you need job skills training? Do you need job development? Do you need coaching after you get the job? What do you need? You need some mobility devices to work, whatever that need is. And then once you have the job and you're kind of squared away, then they close your case. And sometimes people that are unfamiliar, they'll say, they're closing my case, right? Like this is a failure, or they're dumping me, right? Absolutely not. A case closure with DOR, good thing. And you can always reopen, right? So the whole idea is you get on your way, but if for some reason you need services again, something happens with work, you're looking for a different type of job, or you're looking at a promotion, or whatever the case is, and you're thinking, oh gosh, I really need DOR support again, you can reopen your case and get back at it and get that support and build a new employment plan based on your current situation. So just want to put that in mind. Some people reopen their case maybe 10 times in their career, right, over the decades, and that's totally okay. So it operates different than regional centers. So these are very different things. Before we move on, wanted to point out that Department of Rehab, also they're the ones that implement the LEAP program, if you've heard that, the Limited Examination and Appointment Program. That's a way, kind of a streamlined way for people with disabilities to get into state government work. Really cool if you don't know about that.
And they also have a lot more services for students these days, for younger people.
Yeah.
So I don't know if any of you have kids who are still in school, but they could provide services for your youngster as well.
Right. Yeah. And then this last bullet point before we go further is Covered California. So that is, from the Affordable Care Act, that's California's marketplace for healthcare insurance. So it's a good place for people to go if they think, I don't know that I qualify for Medicare or Medicaid services, in our case, Medi-Cal services. I know healthcare is super expensive if I'm just buying it on the market. So based on your income and your assets, it's a great, pretty easy way for you to go on this website to find out what you qualify for and to shop around for the best deals that meet your needs, including a variety of subsidized plans. So super helpful. Covered California has definitely made a difference for a lot of folks that I've worked with. So really terrific. CalAble, I mean, we could keep going about CalAble, but we won't. We went there and did that. But guys, check out the website. There's some wonderful FAQs there, some wonderful sheets, including how CalAble accounts impact Medi-Cal. They have some great fact sheets. Terrific folks over at CalAble. We're big fans, as you can tell. And then we wanted to include the link here for California's Working Disabled program. So that talks a little bit more specifically about that particular program. And you can find more information actually on the California Department of Healthcare Services, because what it does is that it allows certain working folks with disabilities to be eligible to keep their Medi-Cal by paying low monthly premiums. So for example, in situations where maybe you're making too much and you're not able to keep Medi-Cal otherwise, you might be eligible to keep Medi-Cal and just pay a lower monthly premium based on your countable income. So again, it's another one of those programs which is saying, hey, we want you to work as much as you can, and we want to create as many ways as possible for you to maintain your security with your benefits. And so there's requirements, of course, in terms of showing proof of employment. You also need to be able to show that your net family income is less than 250% of the federal poverty level. Don't worry, there's charts out there that tell you, you don't have to do any math. Like there's charts that will tell you, yes, I fall under this amount. And it changes a little bit every year, of course. So that's another program we just want you to be aware of. And then last page of resources here. This is again, letting you know where to go, including good old telephone, picking up the phone and calling somebody and talking to somebody at Social Security Administration. And then you've heard Donna and I talk a fair amount about work incentives planning and assistance, or benefits planners. So you can access some lists to find out where you can find some. Donna talked about her services through HireAble. Department of Rehab, you can also contact work incentives planners. And also for folks that aren't using Department of Rehab and maybe don't have regional center services to get referred to a place like HireAble, a lot of independent living centers, ILCs in the state, there's like 47 of them. Not all, but many of them do have benefits planners that work there also, and that work with a whole variety of folks. And then we also wanted to include this last bullet point here. The state council funded this really cool documentary about a year or so ago, and it's called Let's Work California. And it's about the experience of 8 young people with intellectual developmental disabilities. And it follows them, in their words, them talking about their experiences and their successes in competitive integrated employment. Really fun. It's not too long. Really, I love it. So definitely check it out. Might make for a good movie night at some point. And so we don't have tons of time left, but we want to be able to give you some other little tidbits kind of to get you excited about your next steps. So just know that, no surprise, right? What we've been talking about for the last hour and change is that the system is complex. It's not like one program, you either qualify or you don't. It's many programs with many components to the program, different eligibility, different requirements to maintain them. So it's not the easiest thing. However, the reason why it's complex is so that it can meet more people's needs. That's the idea. So really getting some one-on-one support is going to be worth it and will allow you to find the programs that are going to best fit you or your loved one or somebody that you're working with. And then once you get that established, then it's gravy. Then it's a lot easier to maintain. You report your income, and generally you're on your path. So we hope that you feel like you have a little bit more knowledge of what's going on and know the right questions to ask, and know that it's not just about a yes or no, you're in or you're out for one program, but it's more of a complex menu of different opportunities depending on your specific asset and income situation. And then Donna, back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've pretty much covered it all. And I think you all, those of you who are here tonight, you've already taken the first step. You came, you listened to us. So now hopefully you have a little bit more information than you had before. I've been working with the system for a long time, and I often feel like the more I know, the more I don't know sometimes. But it's okay, because I don't always know. And I go to some of the resources on that list. I use Google a lot. Google's my best friend. I took a class at Cornell to become a WIP. And that's what the professor said. Google's my best friend. So there's a lot of information out there, but there are resources to help you. There are people to help you. And on the last slide, it will be my email address, how to contact me, as well as Sheridan. And I hope the takeaways have been that, it's way more than a paycheck. And we hope that we wish you and your family members all the success out there. Oh, Sheridan double clicked again.
Yeah, double clicking, folks. Thank you for that. So we wanted to show again, these are just a few of the many resources that we talked about this evening, places to get some support. And we wanted to share a few stories. So I'm going to take this deck down, and I want to pop up a few stories where you can see pictures and hear some details, especially because we had some folks that were interested in the paid internship program. We have some good stuff for you, okay? But before we do that, I wanted to share this last slide that you're going to get in the deck that's being shared. It has Donna's contact info, my contact info, a little bit of Walt Disney telling us, make it happen, go out there and dream it and do it, okay? So wanted to share that before I exit out of that, so that I can pull up one thing in our last few minutes here. Want to share this here. So here is an example, just a couple examples of some cool internship stories. So these stories were printed with permission in our Employment First Committee report every year or so. The California's Employment First Committee, which is stakeholders from a variety of different state departments in California and the state council, come together, look at employment policy. How are we doing? What needs to be improved? What's going well and we need to help promote? And anyway, we had a couple of really cool internship success stories that people across the state said, hey, here's my picture, here's my story. I'm so happy with the kind of supports I got in employment. So one recent Project Search graduate, Crystal's her name, plays a role in ensuring that copies of birth and death and marriage certificates are available on request. And guess what? here's a local hero because this is the story of someone here in Alameda County. So talks about some of the work that she does, including collecting, opening, tracking, and delivering pieces of mail to different departments, working in records, also purging old paper records that nobody needs anymore. Thank you so much. So we can get rid of paper records. So it's a short-term assignment that was extended. And I've heard that there's some pretty neat stuff that she's doing now post-internship. So that's one example. And then here's another one here that was published in the Employment First. And these are all public reports, by the way. After completing project search and job hunting for several years, this gentleman was a coveted position as a human resources assistant. So the way that he looks at documents, sees what's missing, the organizational skills, organizing care providers' files, super important with the work. And again, here's kind of an East Bay hero here that wanted to give an example to other people across the state about what's possible, and in a profession where he's giving back and also learning a lot about industry regulations and standards, which is pretty awesome. And then our last one here, another local person. I wanted to pull out a couple local folks. Here's someone's internship story, working at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, right? Otherwise known as the lab. So nationally known, internationally known lab. Multiple years, promotions later. So this is where you see things growing, right? What starts off as an internship helps somebody secure their pathway to a meaningful career of their dreams. And so for this employee, she's working with the National Research Scientific Computer Center, is doing all kinds of things, including travel arrangements for scientists and booking flights and hotels, processing expense reports, basically making it so that scientists can get where they need to go to do the work that they need to do. And then just how exciting to be working at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, right? What an exciting place to be. So wanted to share that. Those are just a few. I know we're about out of time, so I'll stop the share here so we can see each other again. We have a minute left. If there's any other hot questions, Donna and I are here, and Jazz to help you with that. And
you know how to find us beyond today.
We'll throw it back to Jennifer and to Keith.
Well, I just wanted to thank you so much for attending tonight, and thank you to Donna and Sheridan for all of this wonderful information and just helping us to better understand disability benefits, because working is so important and we want to be able to provide opportunities for employment for individuals who want to work. So thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Take care, everybody.